Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today is our 1 to 75 leveling guide for the Acolyte to Necromancer. Now this build will end up being a melee minion build in which you can play ranged or melee yourself, but your minions will be focused on being melee minions. This will get you from 1 to 75 as easily as possible. You can level fast with it, and it will be end game viable to where you can continue to take the build all the way to level 100, or you can opt to start transferring yourself into a different build that you found on mine or a different content creator's page, a build that you've been wanting to try. Now, the way this format is set up is I will take you through my entire process. I will film and speed up all of the boss fights so you can see me fight them. I will stop at specific thresholds of levels, usually when I get a new specialization slot or if I have a few passive points that have stacked up, and I will go over exactly what I'm doing. I will show you the gear that I am wearing at these steps. I will show you when I gamble, if I gamble, when I get new items, how I craft, just to show you exactly how I take a character from 1 to 75 so that you can do the same efficiently and hopefully easily, and so that you can learn quite a few things about the game in the process. Alright, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, I'm just a couple of minutes into the game and we are now level 4. At level 4 there's a few things going on. You get your first specialization slot, so we'll be speccing into our first skill. You have a couple of passives and you have your starting skills. Your skill bar will be full at this point. So we're still deathless. You can see I haven't picked up any items yet. I think there was one two-handed sword that fell. It's probably the least amount of items I've ever had fall in the beginning of a game. But we do not digress. It's early and our luck will hopefully change. Right now we do have the summon skeleton on our skill bar. You can summon 3 minions right off the bat, so definitely summon those as soon as you get them at level 2, and that'll give you some extra DPS from a range. I've been using Rip Blood in order to level so far. Rip Blood gives you life after it hits an enemy and basically steals some of its life for you. Then for our skills, you get your first specialization slot. The first skill we're going to spec into is Wandering Spirits. And the reason we're going to spec into Wandering Spirits is this is a skill that when you use it, it summons a bunch of spirits. They reveal one at a time over a duration of time, and you can make that duration last longer. You can make the spirits themselves last longer. And these aren't minions. These are spirits that are an extension of you. They go off of your damage, off of your ailment chance. And what we're going to do is we're going to spec into them to where normally what they do is they wander around and they hit enemies that are really close to them, kind of like when they go through them. And we're going to give them a ranged ability that's going to let them poison enemies. And it's going to be really OP as soon as we get that, especially early game. Basically, you can just summon them and keep running through the maps and they'll kill everything behind you after you're long gone. So we're going to go ahead and put the first point into Souls of Rage. Our second point will go here as well. We really want this Spectral Putrescence. This will be the first thing that we go for. For passives, you have 2 points at this point. We're going to go ahead and put them both into Forbidden Knowledge. The reason we're putting them in Forbidden Knowledge is because this gives you intelligence as well as some resistance. Now this early in the game, that resistance isn't super important, but the int is very helpful because that int not only gives you more ward retention, even though you don't have ward at this moment, but it gives you more damage with your skills. It also gives your minions more life and more damage as well. For instance, if you hover over the skeletons and push Alt, you can see that their intelligence scaling. They gain 5 health per point of intelligence that you have, and they gain 4% more damage. So we're going to go ahead and throw 2 points in there. And then for items, as you can tell, I haven't picked anything up. We're still wearing all the regular items that we have, although I expect to find some here very soon. Alright, let's get back into it. Alright, after a few more minutes, we are now level 9. We are still deathless. We have 250 HP. We're starting to get some resistance. We have some necrotic that we got from passives, some physical, and some fire on gear. We also picked up some dodge and some armor, and our damages are pretty much all the same. For skills, we picked up 3 more points for the Wandering Spirits. I already put 2 of them in. I put 1 more point in Souls of Rage and 1 point into Spectral Putrescence so that they could start firing that poison because it speeds things up immensely. As soon as you put this 1 point in, you're going to notice a huge difference with them, and they're going to start just annihilating everything for you. Now we have 1 more point to put in. We're going to go ahead and put it into the Lingering Souls. Now we don't really care about the mana cost, especially this early in the game. Mana is just not an issue, but that's going to let each spirit individually last 1 more second, which is going to allow you to have more of them at one time on the battlefield. The most important things to get from this point out is going to be Lingering Souls, this node, Spirit Swarm, so that you can cast the skill more often. Recasting the skill is not going to cancel off the spirits that are still coming from the previous cast. It will still make them, so this just allows you to get a lot more of them. And then we'll be putting 5 points down the road into Thin Veil, which makes them reveal faster, so you'll get even more of them, but in a shorter amount of time. Then we have at level 9 a second specialization slot, which has opened up. You have a few options. Some people really like to go Bone Curse, some people like to do Rip Blood since we're still kind of using it as our main DPS skill. However, since we're going Necromancer for sure in our mastery, we're going to go ahead and go with Summon Skeleton because we know we're going to build into them, and getting a head start early game is really going to help. The first thing that we're going to want to do with them, since we're going melee minions, is we're going to want to get down to this bottom node, Shambling Steel, which removes the archers so that you will only summon the warriors. So we're going to go ahead and put 1 point in Necrotic Conviction. This gives archers and rogues more damage. It gives the warriors more maximum health. All of that is multiplicative. Now, since we're going to be going warriors, obviously this will just be for more health. But we're going to go ahead and put 2 points there. Then we'll get Hollow Walkers so that we can have 1 more. This will raise our limit up to 4 skeleton warriors. And then we'll go ahead and do the remove archers so that we can get the 4 only warriors. And it won't be 2 archers and 2 warriors. For passive points, we have 6 more points. I'm going to go ahead and throw 3 more into Forbidden Knowledge to get us to 5 points. That'll unlock the next line, and here we're going to go ahead and put into Dark Rituals. This will give your minions more attack speed and cast speed. Of course, we're only using melee minions, so attack speed is all we care about. We're going to go ahead and throw 3 points into that for 12% more attack speed for them. For items, we have started to find our items. We now have on a bunch of magic and rare items. I'm going to start with the weapon. We picked up a Brass Scepter, which had some melee physical damage, which we're not even doing, but it had 1 more adaptive spell damage than the base scepter that we were using, that we started the game with. For our chest, we picked up Outcast Rags. It came with some vitality, minion health, regular health, and fire resist. The helm has some vitality and health. The amulet has increased physical damage and dodge rating. The ring has dodge rating and health regeneration. The belt has fire damage, physical damage, health regeneration. Our rings has critical strike, health, dodge. The gloves have minion damage, physical resistance, some health regen per second. The boots have minion health, mana, armor, and health. And of course our relic has minion damage, fire damage, and physical resist. The most important things you want to be going for right now is health, dodge, and resistances. And since this is also a minion build, anything with minion health or minion dodge is also going to help them out as well. Alright, let's get back into it. Alright, we are back to the council chambers a second time, about to head east towards the surface where we're going to get into a whole bunch of void. So at this point you're going to want to start getting some void on your gear. Here we don't have any yet, but we are starting to look for it. We do have quite a bit of physical resistance, which is good because you're going to encounter some sort of mob that does some sort of physical damage in almost every map of the campaign. We're stacking some armor still, we still got some dodge, we haven't really done anything for damage. We're still deathless, we have 280 health now. And then for our skills, we got one more point for Wandering Spirits. We were just shy of getting another one. That 1 point is going to go into Lingering Souls. And at this point it really doesn't matter whether you put into Lingering Souls, Spirit Swarm, or Thin Veil, but these are the three that you're going to want to max first. So until all of these are full, you're just going to keep putting points into those three. And then for Summon Skeleton, we have 3 more points, which is enough to get our warriors. We're going to go ahead and put 1 more point in Necrotic Conviction, 1 point in Hollow Walkers, so we can have 1 more maximum. We'll now be at 4. And now we're going to have only warriors, no archers. And then for passives, we have 5 more passive points. Going to go ahead and finish off the Dark Rituals. We'll put 2 more points there. And then we're also going to finish off the Forbidden Knowledge with 3 more points in there. At this point, when we go forward, there's a few different things you can do, but what we'll be focused on is you can either go for armor to get your damage reduction up if you're having any problems with survivability, or you can get more health, and this will give minions more health. They'll die less, you'll die less. This is also going to be one of the things that we capitalize on. And then for gear, nothing really changed at this point. We just picked up a bunch of items. Remember, you will find some uniques, and some uniques will be very good for your build. However, in this solo self-found leveling guide, I will not be wearing uniques no matter which ones I find. So if you happen to see that I have some uniques and you're asking why I'm not wearing them, it's because I don't expect you to find the same ones that I have, so we're not going to go off of that. Now, we did complete the quest where we got idols, so we now have 2 idols to choose from. We're going to go ahead and put on our 5% increased health one that we found, which was a really good drop, and it has some cold resist on it as well. And then for items, I'm just going to hover over them, but like I said, these are all the exact same except we have a shield on now. These are all the exact same as the last update. Alright, gonna go ahead and get back into it and give you some more footage of those bosses, and I'll meet you at the next update. Alright, I am now almost to the end of time. We're just about to enter the temple. We've taken on a couple more bosses. We've reached level 19. We're still deathless. We have just over 350 health. We still don't have any void resistance. Still looking for some. We found some shards, but they weren't necessarily better than the item I had on. Although I haven't touched crafting yet. We could craft some on, but I'll probably do that in the next update. We're not struggling too hard right now due to the fact that we have so much life. And we have Rip Blood that's giving us life on every hit, which is really helpful. We got quite higher in Necrotic. We have some more armor. Dodge is starting to drop because we haven't put anything new on. For skills, we have 3 more points for Wandering Spirits. Gonna go ahead and cap out the Lingering Souls with 2 more points and put 1 point into Spirit Swarm so that our cooldown recovery will get shorter. Right now it's an 8-second cooldown. With 1 point into there, it is a 7-second cooldown. So you're gonna be able to start getting more Wandering Spirits because you'll be casting it more often. Then we have 3 more points for the Summoned Skeleton. We're going to go ahead and put 2 more points into Unholy Rage for 10% more attack speed and move speed, and 1 point into Marrow Walkers so that we can have another additional one. This will take us from a 4 maximum to a 5 maximum. And then we have our 3rd specialization slot open now that we are level 19. There's a few things you can spec into. If you want to spec into Bone Curse because you've had experience with that, you can. We're not going to. If you'd like to spec into Transplant and do some of the auto casting of Rip Blood through that, and then just become a movement skill and just constantly fly through and let your Wandering Spirits kill things, you can do that. However, I'm going to go ahead and spec into Rip Blood, and the reason I'm going for Rip Blood is I want to go ahead and start taking advantage of the buffs that it can give minions, and eventually it's going to give us a lot more ward when we hit things instead of health, and it's going to give you a lot of protection. So we're going to spec 1 point into Splatter. This will have a 20% chance to do a blood splatter on the ground. It's just going to be a red pool of blood, basically, that it looks like. But we're going to work towards hitting our minions with that. And if you hit your minions with that, you can give them more attack speed, leech, damage, and it's all multiplicative, so it's very helpful. We're going to put 1 point into Crimson Flood, or 2 points, our last 2 points into Crimson Flood for the blood splatter area. That's just to unlock. Our next point will go in Blood Infusion, and this is what will start giving them the bonuses. If you hit your minions with a blood splatter, they'll gain 30% more damage for 4 seconds, and then we'll work into giving them 30% more attack speed, and you can give them up to 15% more of their physical damage as leech. For passives, we have 6 more points. I'm going to go ahead and throw all 6 points into Blood Aura. Our defense is really good right now. Haven't been struggling at all. You can put points into Stolen Vitality if you want. This will give your minions more health and you more health. However, like I said, this character is not struggling at all. We're killing things quickly. We're not dying at all. Our life's not really even falling. We're defeating the bosses relatively easily. We're going to go ahead and throw all 6 points into Blood Aura so that we have even more damage and our minions have more damage. Now this unlocks Spirit Plague, and Spirit Plague is a really nice skill for increasing your damage over time, and I'm going to cover over how I've been playing with my playstyle for just some quick skill rotation. So I've been running around with Wandering Spirits on autocast. Then I summon my maximum number of skeletons, which is now 5, not 4. And then I was putting Bone Curse on the enemies and then hitting them with Rip Blood and transplanting whatever I needed to move. But now I'm going to get rid of Bone Curse. I'm actually going to put Spirit Plague on. And Spirit Plague is a nice skill because it's a dot, and because we're really building into dots. For instance, you know, we're going to be putting Plague on the enemy, and we have Wandering Spirits that's putting Poison on the enemy. It can do some more damage. If you like Bone Curse, when it hits an enemy, it puts a curse on them, and then when you hit them with another skill like Rip Blood, when it's you doing the hit, it applies like 2 hits, which is really nice and really boosted our damage, helped us fly through the bosses. For gear, found a couple of 1x1 idols. We found some extra health, and we found some physical damage for us and our minions, which was really nice. And one thing I want to cover, we did find a new weapon. It has chance to poison on hit. We also found a new relic that has poison on hit as an implicit, and what's nice about this is this poison on hit chance actually applies to your Wandering Spirits as well. It doesn't apply to your minions, but it applies to your Wandering Spirits since they're not a minion, they're actually an extension of you. And since they have 100% chance to poison on hit, and now we're adding in another 39% between these two, they actually have a chance to apply 2 stacks of poison per hit that they do, which is the ability to do a lot more damage, especially on single targets, and comes in really helpful to help speed you through, especially in the beginning of the game like this, where bosses can take a really long time. Alright, let's go ahead and get into some more campaigning. Alright, I am now level 25, and it's time for us to choose our mastery. We're still deathless, we have just over 400 health, we still have not got any void protection, which proves that you can do it so far thus without dying. Although I do recommend that you get some, especially if you are a newer player. However, this build has so many minions in it at this point that they block a lot of the projectiles and things, so it's very easy to survive. We still have a decent amount of armor, and our dodge just continues to drop as we level up. Now for our mastery, we're going to go ahead and choose the Necromancer. Now at this point, I remind you, you cannot change this, so whichever one you pick, that is the one that you are stuck with. So if you aren't liking the build so far and you want to try something else, I would recommend try the Lich, because what you're playing so far with the minions and kind of just running around letting them do their thing is how this entire build is going to feel all the way to endgame. However, it is going to pick up in pace of damage because we're going to start getting a lot more minions and more minion types. But we're going to go ahead and pick the Necromancer. This will give us one more skeleton. We'll also, when we get the skeleton mages, be able to have one more of those, and the minions will now deal 50% increased damage. We also unlock another skill, but we won't be using that one in this build. Now for skills, got one more point for the Wandering Spirits. We're going to go ahead and throw that point into Spirit Swarm so that our recovery for our cooldown has increased even more. We have now dropped down to 6.2 seconds from 7, which was originally 8. Then we have the Summon Skeleton. We have 2 more points, which isn't quite enough to unlock another Maximum Skeleton, and since we just got +1 Maximum Skeleton due to the passive mastery bonus, I'm going to go ahead and put these 2 points in Sweeping Strikes so that we have more melee area of effect from them, and they deal 24% more damage. And then we have 4 points for Rip Blood. We're going to go ahead and get the Blood Infusion so that when we hit our minions with Rip Blood, they will now do 30% more damage. We're going to give 1 point in Infused Frenzy so they have a little bit more attack speed as well. And then 2 more points in Splatter, so it's much more likely that we'll actually get a Blood Splatter when we cast it. For passives, we have 1 more point we're going to put in the Acolyte base class. You have to put 20 points in here before you can start putting points in your masteries. So I'm going to put 1 more point in Blood Aura for just a little bit more damage and minion damage. And then we're going to go over to the Necromancer, and we're going to throw 7 points into Risen Army. This will give the minions more damage and attack speed. And then for our items, I'm going to do a little bit of crafting for you guys just to show you what I would do at this point, especially since I'm lacking Void. So the first thing I do, I open up my character sheet. I'm going to look at what I'm lacking. I have very little Void, very little Poison. Physical has dropped a little bit, and we don't have very much Elemental. At this point, Void and Physical are 2 things that I should really get into. You're going to start running into a lot more Necrotic, especially in this next chapter. You have like Death Knights, and the next boss will deal a lot of necrotic damage, but we already have a good percentage of that, so I'm not going to craft it. But right after him, after we're through all the necrotic, we're going to get into Ice and Cold, so it's a good time to probably start building our Elemental up as well, and Physical never hurts, so we're going to get Physical, Health, and maybe work on some minion damage as well. So I'm going to start with the wand, or our scepter, throw it in. The only thing I've got is 4 physical damages, which really isn't much for us. We don't have any chance to poison on hit. I don't have any shatter runes. However, the physical damage, Rip Blood is a physical spell, so we'll go ahead and throw some of those on. I'm not going to waste any of my glyphs because I don't really care about this weapon. I'm going to save those for the end game. So we'll go ahead and see how many enchants we get here. Ooh, we got a critical success. And then, of course, a fracture right afterwards. But we got 45% more physical damage. So we'll be doing a little bit more damage with Rip Blood. Then for our helm, let's see what we can throw. We can get some Void Resist on this. We can also get Intelligence, which is really effective. And because we can do 1 prefix and 1 suffix, I'm going to go with Void Resist. And looking at, we could do minion health. I'm going to go ahead and do the int though, because int not only gives minions more health, it will also give them more damage and us more damage. So we're going to do int. Now that I'm got 1 more int shard, we're going to go ahead and try 1 more of those, which we got it. And then we're going to do more health. Ooh, we got 1 of those, and I don't really like where we can get to a damaging fracture. We're under that 75% threshold, so I'm going to throw in 1 more Void. And just like that, I'm going to let it be just like that for now. We don't need to go any further. I'm going to throw in my amulet. Now, we have physical damage and dodge range, two things that are really nice for this, but we can put minion damage on here, and I really want to see my minions start hitting really hard. So we're going to throw some minion damage on here, try and get all three of those, which we did. Nice. And now we could either do some more void, or we could do some physical resistance, or we could add some more health. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more physical resistance. We only have enough for 1 point, so that'll finish that one off. We still have a shield on, which has physical resist and armor. There's not really much more we could put on this bad boy, but we're going to go ahead and give it one more piece of armor, and we'll go with some minion health as well. For our other silver ring, we have dodge and health regen on it. Really nothing that I want on this. We could do more physical damage. I might as well just save that at this point. This is a ring we'll probably replace when we find a better one. However, we'll do some more dodge just for the time being. It'll increase our survivability. And then for our relic, here we have quite a few things we can put on. I don't have any elemental resist, which is something I would throw on right now. But I do know that cold will become a problem later in the game, especially when we get to Heoboria, which is only a couple of chapters away. So I'm going to go ahead and throw on our cold resist. And we're just going to stack health, because health is something that you can't ever have too much of. So we'll go up. I got to level up to get any higher than that. And we'll put that on. And that'll do it. So now you can see our stats. We managed to get a little bit of void in there. We got a little bit more cold, a little bit more physical, and we gained about 50 health. Alright, we also gained 4% more dodge, but that's not really a biggie at this point. I'm going to go ahead and get back into it, and we'll see you at the next update at level 34. Alright, I am now level 34. We are still deathless. We have just over 500 health, and we begin to get all of our resistances. We are lacking a bit in lightning and elemental in general, but we've picked up our poison and our void quite a bit. Our armor and dodge percentages are dropping because we haven't put on any new gear to buff them back up. And for our items, we haven't really done anything with it. So the only thing that has changed is we've thrown on a copper Aegis instead of having a shield on. This gave us more int, it gives us some ward per second, but it came with a bunch of void and poison resistance, and that's the only thing that I have changed on this build. We also opened up 2 idle slots, so if you have another idle, you can throw it in there. I have one, we can throw it in there, but it doesn't have anything that we're actually doing, so we're not stunning and we're not doing any sort of void damage, so it doesn't really help us, but I'll put it there until we find something better. For skills, we have 3 more points for the Wandering Spirits. Going to go ahead and cap out the Spirit Swarm, and then we're going to throw 2 points in Thin Veil. For the Summoned Skeletons, we have 3 more points. Going to go ahead and get 1 more Maximum Skeleton, so 2 points in Unbound Necromancy and 1 point in Grave Walkers. We have 4 points in Rip Blood, and there's probably something you've noticed is if your minions die fast enough, you have mana issues with this build. So your minions shouldn't die too fast unless you're really just moving through and letting them all die, and then just constantly spamming them back. However, if you play with them, they should survive enough to where you don't have mana problems. But if you do, there's a way to get mana, and that's the way we're going to go right now. We're going to put 1 point in Hemomancer, 1 or 2 points in Quenching, and this is going to give you more health now whenever you use it and hit enemies with it. And then we're going to put 1 point in Mana Feast so that you actually get 3 mana back whenever you get a Rip blood orb back. So as long as you hit an enemy, you're going to get some mana back, and you can get up to 9 mana back, which is a lot of mana, so you only have to cast it a few times to get all of your mana back. Eventually we're going to switch from getting health into getting wards, so we're going to be getting mana and ward while we buff our minions, and we're going to get that from hitting our minions. And then we opened up our 4th specialization slot, and we're going to go ahead and throw in the Summon Skeleton Mage. Our last one will end up being Dreadshade, and that's what's really going to boost the damage of your minions. But until we get to that, our minions are just going to kind of be an average build. For Summon Skeleton Mage, we want to get into the Death Knights as fast as possible. And the Death Knights are located down in the bottom right. So we're going to put 1 point into Cellar Mortis. This gives them more base crit chance and move speed. 1 point in Shadow Wardens. This gives them ward per second and critical strike avoidance. And then 1 point into Death Knights. Now, if you're having a lot of survivability problems with the Death Knights themselves when you start using them, instead of speccing into damage, which is what I'm going to do here, you can spec into them getting more crit chance and getting a percentage of their maximum health back on crit. Once you spec in and cap out Cellar Mortis and cap out Grey Merchant, and you've capped out their critical strike avoidance, they're just not going to die anymore. Even in the end game, their survivability is way up there because they can't be critically struck, and they're going to have 100% crit. So every time they crit, they're going to heal themselves for 15% of their maximum health, and they're going to have such attack speed, they're doing that a few times a second. So it becomes very, very hard for them to die. However, right now, I'm just going to focus on giving them a bit more damage. So I'm going to put 2 points into flaming attacks. And then for passives, we have 12 more passive points. If you're having a lot of survivability issues with your minions, they're just dying incredibly fast, it's not really just enough to give them more health. What you really need to give them is some health regen, because they don't really have leech yet. They don't get leech till the top half of the tree, which is something that you're not going to get till later when we get much higher level. So to help them out right now, you can give them some flat health regen. I haven't found any gear that has dropped yet that has flat minion health regen for them, so we haven't been able to put any on them. So they essentially aren't leeching, and they're not getting any health, regen per second. So they do tend to die quite a bit, especially if they're in the fight, and melee minions are in the fight all the time. So we're going to go ahead and give them some. We're going to put 5 points into blood armor. They will now heal 10 health per second. And then we're going to put 3 points into cursed blood. And then 2 points into mortal tether. And we're trying to get up to Unearthed Arms. This flat minion melee physical damage is really going to help your minions do more damage, especially since it affects all of them, and you're going to have, at this point, you have 10 of them, so that's a lot of minion melee physical damage that you're going to be getting. And then our final 2 points is going to go into armor shred, so that each time they do a hit, they can shred some armor off of the enemy at a 50% rate, and that's going to allow them to do more damage, especially against bosses. Alright, let's go ahead and get back into it. Alright, I am now level 40. I did die once. That's what happens when you don't pay attention. And we have not really changed our gear around at all, so we have about the same resistances, armor, and dodge that we've had the entire time. We gained a little bit of health, but that's just from gaining levels. And for the most part at this point, we've been doing quite well. It did slow down a little bit. Our minions aren't as fast as we'd like, but I can promise you they will get faster as we get higher level, and their damage is going to slowly pick up as we really ramp up into the top half of that Necromancer tree. Now for skills, we got 1 point in Wandering Spirits, which we're going to put into Thin Veil. 1 point into Summon Skeleton, which we're going to put into Sweeping Strikes. 2 points in Rip Blood, which we're going to put 1 point in Quenching, and then 1 point into Marrow Drinker, so that you now target your minions instead and you get 100% more health. What this is going to really do for you is it's going to make it easier to target your minions with the Rip Blood to give them the buff, and it's also going to give you double the HP back, which is really going to give you a lot and refill your health really quickly. And then we have 7 points for the Summon Skeleton Mage. We're going to put 3 points in the Flaming Attacks to get all that melee fire damage, 1 point in Cellar Mortis, and then 3 points in Grey Merchant. And their survivability is going to go up a lot with the 3 points in here, especially with the 2 points in Cellar Mortis. They're going to start critting more, and as we get into the top of the passive tree in the Necromancer, they're going to get a lot more crit chance. And as we get into Dreadshade, if they have Dreadshade on them, they're going to have 100% crit chance, and that's going to increase their survivability just really quickly. It's going to all happen kind of there at once towards the end game. And then for passives, we have 10 more passive points. We're going to put 1 point into Aegis Fall. We're going to then put 8 points into Unearthed Arms to give them more minion melee physical damage. This is base damage for them, so their damage is going to go, they're going to be doing a lot more damage now. And then we're going to put 1 point into Frantic Summons. And now we're going to work our way up towards the top here. We're going to give them a lot more critical strike chance, which means they'll be doing a lot more damage. There's more flat damage up here for them to have too, fire and necrotic. And we're also going to give them a lot more leech, or at least some leech, because they don't have very much right now. And what that's going to do is it's going to really increase their survivability once they can start leeching a lot of this damage that they're doing, especially if it's critical strikes. So we'll be working up this left side to get a lot of that. We can get some more int up here, and just a lot of critical strike chance and leech for the minions. And then for gear is all the same. Still got the same idol on, still got basically everything, all the gear is the same, haven't crafted anything. Probably wait until we get done with chapter 7, you know, halfway through Heoporia. We'll have to get some cold gear on, but that's basically all we're going to be doing in the whole next chapter. Usually I save most of the crafting and gearing for the Monolith of Fate anyways. I did have a death rattle drop. If you drop a death rattle, I'm not going to wear it on this build because, you know, it wouldn't be fair because you might not have one. But if you do have one of these, put it on, because that 100 and in this case 69% minion critical strike multiplier, it means that their critical strikes are going to do a lot more damage. You can get up to 200%. It's a huge amount of damage for them. In the final build, the end game build, this is something that I have on for that build because it's so much more damage for them, but I'm not going to wear it here, and we're just going to continue on. Alright, I'll see you guys at the next update. Alright, I am now level 49 and we've changed up quite a bit of stuff. Now we did get a lot of fire protection. We almost capped it out when we went through the last chapter as there was a lot of fire in it. Now we're into almost Lagon's area. We're into the temple. Lightning resistance is really what you want at this point. However, I don't have a whole lot of it. We'll still do alright. A lot of the minions will take the damage for us. We're not dying very often. I think I've only died twice so far. We have almost 800 health. We're at 12% armor, 14% dodge. And for items, we have changed quite a few things around. Found some new rings. I'm just going to hover over them so you can see what I have on them. Some of them have changed, some of them haven't. This is the same relic that we've had. This is the same belt that we've had since the beginning. We still have the original scepter that we found early game. And that's all of them. We found some different types of idols. We found some more with some poison chance on spell hit, and we found some with some increased health. We do have another 1x4 that has a lot of physical damage and minion physical damage. Kind of waiting until we finish out the campaign and open up a couple more slots to put that in. For passives, we're going to go ahead and unlock Dreadshade and start building into that, and that's when this build will start to take off. Dreadshade has some really powerful buffs. It's going to give the companion that it's on, and you can have multiple of them active, 100% crit chance. It's going to give everyone massive amounts of armor, so lots of defense, and attack speed. So things start to get ridiculous with Dreadshade, and that's when this build is going to go from feeling kind of average to maybe even a little bit slow to really take off and be a much quicker paced enemy killer for you. So we're going to go ahead and want to get into this River of Bones. So we're going to start off with another point in Frantic Summons. Then we're going to put 5 points in River of Bones. And then we're going to put 5 points in Moonlight Prior, or 4 points, our last 4 points, for more minion fire and necrotic damage. That's flat damage, so all of it's going to help all of your melee physical minions right now do more damage. And then we unlock Dreadshade, so we're going to go get into that with skills. So for Wandering Spirits, we have 2 more points. We'll go ahead and cap out the Thin Veil. For Summon Skeleton, we have 2 more points. We're going to cap out the Sweeping Strikes. For Ripblood, we have 2 more points. And for Ripblood, I'm going to go ahead and go with more survivability. We're going to put 1 more point in clenching and then 1 point in hematology, which gives you more health per intelligence point that you have. You'll get 5% more per point of intelligence, and we have 30 points of intelligence at this point, so that's 150% more life you're going to get from Ripblood orbs now, which is pretty huge, and it's going to make it to where when you're hitting your minions, you're getting a lot of life back in case you're taking any hits. And then for the Summon Skeleton Mage, we have 3 more points. We're going to put all 3 of them straight into the base crit chance. We want them critting all the time now. This is where their survivability will start to take off. Not only did we give them more base crit, but with the River of Bones passive we just did, they got a whole lot more crit chance. So they're going to be critting 2 to 3 times more often now. And then we have 6 points for our new specialized skill, which is going to be Dreadshade. And with Dreadshade, what you really want to focus on with Dreadshade and what you're going to build into is 3 things. 1, you're going to want to build into letting yourself and your allies be affected by Dreadshade's aura. So all of the effects from this tree are going to affect you and your allies, and you're going to put it on your allies, your minions. The other thing is you're going to want armor per point of intelligence. Right now we have 30 points of intelligence, which means this is worth 710 armor, flat armor. That's going to be about 30% damage reduction for us with what we already have, which is huge. And then the other thing you're going to want to build into is getting your minions to always crit, and this where this doesn't decay their health anymore, instead it just poisons them, which is going to make them last much longer. And then of course we'll get into towards the end getting a whole lot, 50% more attack speed along with another 45% attack speed, and it gives you a whole lot more damage. So we're going to build into this, but we're going to begin it with getting it to where it affects us and the allies, and we get the armor. That way your survivability goes up right now. On top of that, everyone's benefiting from it. So we're going to put 2 points in Spectral Presence, 2 points in Grim Fate, and then 1 point in Symbiotic Apparition. And then we're going to put 1 point in Flesh Harvest, and we're going to, then our next 2 points will go into the Dread Plague, and then loop around to Martyr Doom to get that intelligence. We'll just need 2 more levels. Alright, that's it for this update. We're going to go ahead and take on the bosses now. We're getting towards the end of the temple. I'll show you the boss fights in regular real time. And then when we're done with Lagan, I'm just going to jump straight into the mono. And from there, start looking and really getting into finding the right gear for the build. And that's where you'll start to really get some real good gains on their survivability, the damage that they do, and just getting those really higher affixes, tier 4, tier 5 on a lot of the spots that you need them. Alright, let's get into it. Alright, I'm now at the Black Sun timeline. We're level 55. We're working our way through that. We've beaten Abomination, and at level 55 you can see we're still lacking in some defenses in this timeline for sure. We're going to make sure we have 75% capped void resistance before we take on the boss. Otherwise you'll probably just die over and over again. We are getting more armor because we've spec'd out Dreadshade, and now we get more armor, 25 more armor, flat armor per point of intelligence, so that's really helpful. In fact, if I use it right now on a minion, as you can see, our armor will jump up to 33%, and as they lose health and the effect of this aura increases, that'll actually go up. As you can see, it's starting to jump right now as they start to lose health. And as we get more intelligence, which will get 20 to 30 more points by level 75 thanks to crafting more of it onto gear pieces and through taking more passive points in our passive tree, it's going to increase to a point where you can get over 40% damage reduction, which is pretty huge for it. And then for our skills, haven't gained any more skill levels in the first 4, but we did put some points in for Dreadshade. So before, on the last update, we had spec'd into a few down here and then 1 point into Flesh Harvest. We've added 1 point in Dread Plague and 1 point in Martyrdom so that you get that armor per point of intelligence. And then we spec'd into the bottom left here where we have 3 points in Lingering Doom, 1 point in Pernicious Pact. This will make it to where your minions don't die so fast. Instead of decaying with 3% of their health, their max health per second, you will instead just poison them, and it does a lot less damage. They'll last about 10 times longer with this. And then we put 1 point in Egoism so that the minion that it's applied to will always crit. And you can have 4 or 5 of these. I think 5 might be the limit of shades you can have. But you can have that many of your minions always critting now, and I try to benefit this more on the warrior than the death knights, because the death knights have that base crit inside the skill tree, so the warriors are the ones that crit less, so they benefit more from this. So try to put it on them. It's pretty hard to like target them in battle, but if you can, those are the ones that you want to put it on if you're actually paying attention and manually doing it. And then for passives, we had 7 more passive points. I put 2 more of them, or 3 more of them, into Mortal Tether, and 1 more into Unbound Necromancy so that we could get an additional skeleton. I believe it was 2 into Mortal Tether, 1 into Unbound Necromancy, and then 3 more into Tyrant so that we can get 2 more skeletons when we get up here to the top, and that'll be the final 2, and you'll be able to get to a maximum of 10 of them. And then we'll, of course, start putting back into our flat damage for our minions, and then get a little bit of increased damage for them, and that'll unlock our 4th mage, or what will be our 4th death knight, which will be a lot more damage for us. And then for gear, we picked up a Raider Axe that had tier 5 increased minion melee damage, so that was pretty nice. Definitely boosted their damage by quite a bit. We haven't done much with idols. We unlocked all the slots, obviously, filled them with what we have, but we're looking for some base crit chance for minions, or physical damage for minions, or a mixture of the two, so we're keeping an eye out for those. And then for other crafted pieces, I'm just going to hover over them. We have a lot of dodge on our chest. We got some int on our helm. On our amulet we have some minion damage and physical damage. We still have a lower level catalyst. We're going to start looking for a higher end one that comes with more intelligence. I believe you can get up to like 14 or 15 intelligence on a higher end one, so that'll help. For our belt, still lower tiered, but we got some good flat health on that. We got a ruby ring on with more minion health, gloves with minion health, the boots have int on them, and then the same relic since the beginning of the game with that minion health and that chance to poison on hit, which was really nice for the wandering spirits. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get back into it, give you another update around level 65. If you are having trouble with survivability, remember, if you can't beat Rhea on this timeline, you're going to want that void resistance, and make sure that you're in range with the Dreadshade aura so that you get all of that armor, so that'll definitely increase your survivability. Alright, I am now level 65. We're actually just about to take on Lagon. We ended up killing Rhea, no problem. We capped out on resistance. We had a couple of tier 5 affixes that we found while running through the monos. We are still lacking in poison, and before we take on Lagon, we definitely want to capitalize upon getting capped out lightning resistance. We still haven't got much armor. Our dodge is slowly fading away, but we're not really built around that. And it would be nice to get some increased armor percentages on our gear, so when we get that, almost 1,000 flat armor from Dreadshade, that it would be boosted even more by percentage increases. But we'll look into that. Right now, the main thing is we want to cap lightning before we take on Lagon. Actually, we want to cap all of elemental, but basically, don't worry about poison yet, don't worry about necrotic, just kind of capitalize your physical and elemental at this point as you go towards Lagon. For the skills, we have 3 more points for Wandering Spirits. We're going to put all 3 of them into Soul of Filth. For Summon Skeleton, we have 3 more points. We're going to start getting into survivability with them. They're already starting to survive a lot better. The Death Knights almost never die. The Warriors die every now and then. But we're going to put 1 more point into Necrotic Conviction. This gives them a little more health. But now we're going to get into the Bone Armor. And this gives them 40% damage reduction. And you can get 100% uptime on it, which is really nice. You can even have them cast it on you, although it has a lesser effect on you. But you can have them cast it on the Death Knights as well if you really spec into it hard, which is going to be 40% damage reduction for all of your minions, which really increases their survivability. And you'll notice you almost never have to resummon them anymore. What it's going to be is Dreadshade will be the only thing killing them, and even it will kill them slowly. So we're going to put 1 point in Bone Armor and then the last point into Impatience. So the way this works is for 4 seconds they'll get Bone Armor, which is 40% damage reduction. It has a 10-second cooldown, so that means only 40% of the time they're going to have 40% damage reduction. However, the points in Impatient can fix that to where you can get 100% uptime. So Bone Armor now lasts 1 second longer. So instead of 4 seconds, it's now 5 seconds. So that's now 50% uptime. And it reduces the cooldown by 30%, which takes you from a 10-second down to about a 7 seconds. So they're almost at 100% uptime with just 1 point. With 2 points, you are at 100% uptime. You don't have to put any more than 2 points in, unless you're wanting them to cast it on allies like your Death Knights. For Rip Blood, we have 3 more points. We're not even going to go into the ward right now. What we'll end up doing is we'll re-spec and take the splatter. Instead of putting points here for a chance, we'll just take the mana cost with 1 point. And when we get those points back, then we'll worry about getting into the ward. For right now, we're just going to buff the minions. We're going to put 2 more points into Infused Frenzy for another 20% attack speed for them. And 1 point in Hemophily, so they are leeching 5% more of the physical damage that they do, which is really going to help their survivability. And then for the Summon Skeleton Mage, we have 3 more points. We're going to go ahead and put 1 more point into Shadow Wardens for some more ward per second critical strike avoidance, and 2 points into Splintered Dominion, so they have a larger area of effect for their melee attacks. If you get 4 points in here, you'll notice that they start to take out trash groups really, really quickly, which is really nice. And then for Dreadshade, we have 4 more points. We're going to go ahead and put the point into Blind Fury, so whoever you cast it on will get 50% more attack speed. Now it says it blinds your minion, which reduces their critical strike chance. However, Egoism, which gives the minion always crits, overrides that. So really the blind does nothing. This is basically a free 50% attack speed for the minion that you put it on. And then we're going to go ahead and put 3 points in Dying COVID. And this gives 45% attack speed and cast speed to everyone who's in the aura. And this actually increases with the effect of them decreasing their health. So the minion that has Dreadshade actually on them is now going to have 95% more attack speed. This is what makes them go absolutely ridiculous. And then as their life goes down and this effect increases, they can actually get more. And right before they die, you're actually going to be closer to about 140 to 150% attack speed on that minion, and you'll see that they're just going absolutely nuts, especially like against single targets when you can really watch them. It just gets really crazy, and as you get into endgame, it's just ridiculous, especially once you give them some more. If you find some uniques that give them more flat melee physical damage or any sort of flat damage, their damage gets ridiculous, and you probably seen my other build where you can have 15 minions doing 2k crits each and attacking 3 or 4 times a second, which is ridiculous. And then for passives, we got 10 more points. We're going to go ahead and put 2 points into Tyrant's Legion for 2 more skeletons. Then we're going to put 3 points in Rite of Undeath. This will give you some more necrotic and elemental resist, which we need. And then that'll unlock the Disciples of Necromancy for 1 more mage, or Death Knight in our case. And then we'll have 4 points left, and we're going to throw all 4 of them into the minion Moonlight Prior to give them more flat necrotic and fire damage. For gear, nothing's really changed on the gear front. We've just done some more enchanting. I believe it was the boots. The boots, we found a really good base pair of boots, and now we have minion health, int, health, and elemental resist on them, which was a really nice pair. I'm just going to hover over these all real quick, so if you're curious on what affixes I'm running at this point, not all of these are optimal or min-maxed. These are just ones we found, but this is what I have at level 65, and we are doing quite well. We don't have Bone Golem, but we did find a helm that had Bone Golem, but we really wanted the Void Resist. It had tier 5 Void Resist drop on it, and then we added in physical, and there's the amulet. Alright, I will see you guys at level 75 for the last update. Alright, travelers, it's time for the last update. We are now level 75. We've beaten quite a few timelines. We're just working our way through them now. We're almost capped on all of our resistances. You'll see that our armor and dodge are still the same. Dodge slowly dropping out of the picture. Our health is now just over 1200. And then, of course, if you haven't checked any of the updates since we've done the Dread Shade, this armor gets way higher when you throw on a Dread Shade onto an enemy and you stay inside the aura. You can see we jump up to 28% damage reduction, and as they start to lose life, which will take a little bit here, that will actually start to go up, as you can see here, and you can get to 30 to 35% damage reduction as they lose their life. In fact, if we sit here just a bit longer, maybe throw another one on it, we'll be able to see their health drop quite a bit faster, and you'll see how high that can actually get. And 33%, 34%, 35%, it actually goes a little higher to 36, 37, maybe, 38% damage reduction, and 39. But that's how the Dread Shade works, and then of course your companion sits there dead afterwards. For skills, we put a final point in everything. For Wandering Spirits, we put 1 point in Spectral Scorn. For Summon Skeleton, we put 1 more point into the Impatience, so they can now have 100% uptime of their bone armor. For Rip Blood, we put 1 more point in Hemophagy for that physical leech for your minions when they're hit by blood splatter. For the Mage, we put 1 more point into Splinter Dominion for that melee area of effect. And for Dreadshade, 2 more points, both of which went into Flesh Harvest. For the passive points, had 10 more passive points. We went ahead and capped out the Frantic Summons, capped out the Moonlight Prior, and then the rest of the points, all 5 of them, added to Rite of Undeath. And that's what gave us our Elemental Resist cap, our Necrotic cap, and then it's more damage for the minions. For our gear, nothing has changed on the gear side. I'm just going to hover over these. These are the items, as you see here, that will be in the gear planner, as they are what I ended up with at level 75. And then I did end up switching the Death Rattle just so that it's in the gear planner, so that you guys will know the best in slot that you can get. You can gamble for this. At this point, you know, you'll have some gold and you can definitely try and get it, or it might have fallen for you. I seem to be getting the Death Rattle and the Sunwreath rings on every one of these solo runs that I do. So it's a common drop. You'll be able to get it. Alright, travelers, that's it for me. I'm going to be putting up another poll to see which one that we'll do next for the 1 to 75 guide, so make sure you vote on that. And if your class that you've been wanting is not on that list or has not been done yet, feel free to comment it in there below. And if there's anything you'd like me to change with these guides to make it easier for you to level up, put that in the comments on this video below. And then, as always, in the description now will be the links, and you'll be able to go to the forum where there will be a written version of which points to put where at all the same breakdown level points that I've done in this video. There will be a link to the gear planner there, and of course we have the loot filter. Alright guys, stay safe.